Hello, and welcome to Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts,
Gustavo,
Ivan,
and Walter, and today we're going to talk about
the man, the myth, the legend, and if I may add, the GOAT, John Ronald Rule, Mr. J.R.R. Tolkien himself.
But first, a word from our sponsor. Now is a great time to learn more about CMF Curo as a Catholic healthcare option for your family. You can join anytime throughout the year, plus you'll experience an authentic Catholic community that cares about your whole health, spirit, mind, and body. CMF Curo members share medical burdens in community, have access to a spiritual director, concierge services, health and spiritual resources, and more. Visit mycatholichealthcare.com to learn more about CMF Curo. That's mycatholichealthcare.com. So, being a hobbit.
Tell me about being a hobbit.
I like the idea of second breakfast.
Or third.
Or third.
Mm-hmm.
11 C's.
11 C's. What's 11 C's?
I think that there's another one, right? Called 11 C's.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like breakfast, second breakfast, 11 C's. Like lunch, supper.
So 7
dinner.
meals a day. Is it like praying seven times a day?
I don't even know if that's the connection to it, but
We're just
how
making
sick
it.
is it that you get to eat 7 to 8 meals a day? You get to drink all the beer, all the ales. You get to smoke pipe, tobacco all day. Dude, being a hobbit it's pretty cool.
And the houses are really cool. Like, who are they never talk about the architects of the Hobbit houses in Lord of the Rings, but
They're just holes in the ground.
they're holes
So
in the
it's breakfast, second breakfast, 11 C's, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper.
ground. Wait, what's it? What time is dinner and what time is supper? And which
Dinner
one is
might be
bigger?
like 5-ish, and then supper is like late night, like 7 or 8.
Oh, okay. So like merienda and then
Ándale,
cena,
ándale.
which is like something that it doesn't exist in the U.S.
Mm-mm.
You know,
So
having dinner.
Mexicans are pretty much hobbits. if you
Right?
think about it.
Dude.
Yeah.
No joke.
You're welcome, Earth.
But instead of afternoon tea is cafecito con pan dulce,
Ándale.
Yeah.
that'd be funny.
Dude, we were just meant to be hobbits.
Dude, Mexicans are like as tall as hobbits, so that kind of makes sense.
That's, yeah.
My
Or
mom
dwarves.
can't have coffee without any,
Sweets.
or something, or la burrito, or like a concha or something. Well, not a concha anymore. Maybe when she was like younger. She says, algo para pasarme el café.
My dad says, someone is like, ¿Quieres café? And his automatic response is like, "Pues tendrás pan." Like, he wants the coffee. I was like, do you have bread?
That is awesome. I'm
Yeah.
going to use that.
Can we talk about the fact that you have glitter on your face right now?
I have glitter on my face.
It's like, were the girls crafting today?
No, I didn't know that. Might be they went to like Bath and Body because one of Carolina's sisters took her to get like a belated birthday gift, and they might put something on my
There's
face.
a
and I
certain
didn't know.
twinkle in your eye right now.
Well, I'm just gonna
It's because we're talking about Tolkien.
I'm just gonna work with
That's
that.
the twinkle.
I'm gonna work it.
All right.
Glittery Gustavo.
Okay, no comment on that.
Dude, fun fact, Carlos hates glitter. Like I mean, like with a passion.
Well, glitter is, if you're a parent, yes, glitter is like one of your nemesis, like the nemesis. Because if there's glitter on something, or if, God forbid, somebody buys like a tub of glitter and then that thing drops, you might as well just move to a new house because you will
You're gonna
never
find
get rid
glitter.
of it.
So I have a friend who came up with this brilliant idea that if you ever want to quit a job,
Glitter quitter?
yeah, the glitter quitter. You know, and this job was just terrible to you. You hated it, this and that. You go into your boss's office with a bunch of glitter, and then you say, "I quit," and then poof, just blow it everywhere. Take it out of your pockets and just.
Dude,
They will never forget you.
there was a guy that quit a job where I was working. He was my coworker, and he put like an Anoyatron in a cup, styrofoam cup full of glitter, and the cup, the bottom of the cup was like glued with some string to like one of those overhead file cabinets that you can open.
Yeah,
they go up.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he put it on someone else's cubicle, and the Anoyatron was going off like at random. And at some point, I just hear like this very loud scream, and there was glitter all over her desk and chair. I thought it was epic, but also pretty cruel because of what you said.
Yeah, you will never get rid of all of it.
Yeah, you might as well just start over in another company. So, glitter.
Yeah.
Glitter is magic.
I know, it is magic.
And it's annoying as hell.
Yes. Quick disclaimer for this episode. My voice sounds kind of funky. It's because right now it's allergy season in Arizona. So I'm a little congested. So I'm not sick. I don't have corona. I want a corona. I just kidding. I don't want a corona. Corona's nasty. Those Equis are bust. Just saying. But
should probably do a ranking of Mexican beers.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's
Actually,
that's a great idea.
Corona's gonna be the last one.
Probably. All right. Today we are going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend. Ivan, why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, I would love to. So
about your boy.
Yeah,
my boy, my guy, Mr. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. So Tolkien was I'm a big fan of what Tolkien has done and what he's written and just this world that he's created. So we're not really going to go like heavy into like Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit lore and things like that. We kind of just want to, kick it off with
the person
himself, Tolkien.
Dude, all of the things that you put here, I didn't know any of them.
Yeah, man, it's pretty fascinating. So Tolkien was born on January 3rd, 1892 in South Africa. And he and his mom Mabel and his brother Hilary went to England to visit family. And when they were over there, his dad was going to meet with him in England. And he died before he actually got to England. So, which that kind of sucks. And that made finances really difficult obviously for Mabel and the boys. So she and the boys had to stay in England permanently. So a lot of people think that Tolkien was actually born in England, but no, he was born in South Africa, which is something I didn't know about until I actually started learning more about Tolkien. When they moved to England, Mabel Tolkien converted to Catholicism, and that was a big no from her Baptist family. I mean, they pretty much just completely cut her off. Like, can you imagine? Like, you're Protestant and then I'll be Catholic.
In England. Is this 1870? The Anglican Church already exists, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a big no. So they completely cut her off financially, and she pretty much had to, do everything herself. Mabel Tolkien died when John Ronald Reuel was 12 years old, and she was in about 34 years old, and she died of it was like diabetes, but insulin wasn't created yet, so she couldn't get the treatment that she needed. So
she pretty much like wasted away.
Yeah, she like worked herself to death, which is kind of crazy. And then Tolkien himself said, "My own dear mother was a martyr indeed, and it is not to everybody that God grants so easy a way to his great gifts, as he did to Hilary and myself, giving us a mother who killed herself with labor and trouble to ensure keeping the faith."
Wow.
So, because she converted to Catholicism and working herself to death, like, she was so committed to her boys and that they would keep her faith that, she went to great lengths. So, it's kind of fascinating.
That's amazing.
Yeah. After Mabel died, J.R.R. Tolkien and his brother Hilary were actually entrusted to a Father Francis Xavier Morgan, who raised them to be good Catholics.
So they were in an orphanage, basically. Kind of.
It was like I think it was an orphanage.
I don't remember.
know. I don't know if it was like a school for boys
Mm.
or
Like a boarding
orphanage.
school,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
That I don't really know, but
Very cool.
yeah. Tolkien always excelled in his studies, and he had a creative mind since he was very, very young. I mean, he would always be writing down stories, creating stories, doodling different drawings, creating his own language, even when he was a little boy. And then we can see how that inspired him to, create his own Elvish language and Dwarvish language, and I mean, it's kind of crazy. When Tolkien was 16 years old, he met the love of his life, Miss Edith Mary Bratt. And then it's kind of funny, but Father Morgan actually prohibited them from dating because he still needed to focus on his studies and because she was Protestant. So he was like,
Good call.
y'all ain't gonna date. Which is kind of crazy.
Keeping it real.
Sounds like my father-in-law on the first part.
Really?
Yeah, when I asked permission to started dating Carolina a little bit more seriously, well, dating, I mean,
Courting her.
I went and asked for permission, and he looked me up and down. He's like, "Why don't you finish your schooling first?" I'm like, just like dumbfounded. And then Carolina's like literally behind me, like doing like the "cut it out, dad," kind of like on the neck. So I was like, "No." He just like starts laughing. I'm like, "No, I think I want to date her now." He's like, "All right," but he just had to throw that jab in there.
Dang, you're bold.
No, and I knew him. I mean, our relationship was.
Oh, okay.
He was like very strict, but they knew me since I was like very young, and I won't tell that long story. But he always. I mean, he has.
I'm gonna use that.
9 daughters and 1 son.
Traes la leche en el hocico.
He had 9 daughters and 1 son. So
Carolina has 8 sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Dang,
yeah,
dude.
she's the second to last of 10.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I mean, understandably, her dad was protective of his girls, as any father would.
Rightly
so. It kind of like rang the bell when I heard that.
Yeah.
Well, unlike Gustavo, Tolkien actually listened to Father. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. We're all glad you didn't listen.
What a loser Tolkien was.
Grow a spine.
Spineless.
No, he was actually very, like, he respected Father Morgan so much that he respected his wishes of, he didn't have any contact with her whatsoever. And when he turned 21, Tolkien wrote a letter to Edith saying that he never stopped loving her. And in that letter, he asked her to marry him. And she was engaged to somebody else.
Ooh.
I know, which is kind of crazy.
Can you imagine if she got the letter, but it's all in Elvish, and she's like, "What the
no.
What? There's a bunch of like lines and sticks. What are you asking me?"
So he then traveled to see her, and he spent the whole day with her. And after spending the whole day with
Tolkien.
With Tolkien, she accepted his marriage proposal.
Dude, how awkward it's gonna be for like the other dude.
Know. So then after she accepted his hand in marriage, wait, is that how it is?
Her hand?
Her hand in marriage. His hand.
I guess they're taking each
now.
other.
That's true. After that, she converted to Catholicism, and then they later got married in the church, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Hang on. So that sounds oddly familiar with like Big Fish. You know that the guy goes, the guy put like a field of daffodils.
Yeah.
And
maybe that's where they got the inspiration for that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I just thought about that. Sorry for the tangent. Okay, so they get married.
They got married, and then after they got married, they had kids. He wrote all the books and stories. And then Tolkien died on September 2nd, 1973 at the age of 81 after having lived a very good life, very full life.
That's my wedding anniversary, by the way.
Really?
September 2nd?
Mm-hmm.
That's
nice.
It's
a good month.
Yeah, that is a good month. That's my wedding anniversary is that month as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, like Tolkien lived a very good, full life.
So he went to Oxford, right? So he was a trained linguist, and that's why he was like into creating languages.
Mhm.
What came first, the languages or the stories?
That is a great question. I do not know that.
Oh.
I do know that, I think he wrote The Hobbit and then he wrote The Lord of the Rings. And those books were actually released by the time he was still alive. And then he died and then they released the Silmarillion. I think that's how, I
Mhm.
think that's pretty accurate. But then he wrote so many other stories. There's like, dude, like he wrote so much.
But not all of it was published.
Not all
No.
of it. And I think they're still now finding different stuff that he wrote.
What?
So they're still
Yeah.
compiling. Like I think his
His son, right,
who,
Christopher.
Who did he die pretty recently?
I don't
Or
know.
I don't remember if he did. Maybe not. But
We
they're
can
still
find
like,
out.
putting everything. Yeah, there you go. But they're still putting everything together. But I don't know if the stories came first or I can imagine that as he was writing the stories, he was coming up with some of the languages.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty crazy, man. Like just
I know, like, how do you come up with like, okay, this is this people, they are going to talk this language, and you write a language.
yeah.
It's not like Big Latin, it's
No.
like
And then he
Yeah.
comes up with names, and then this name means something in Elvish, but it also means this in or it's said like this in the Dwarvish language, or it's insane, man.
Mhm.
Just how he created this world that we all get to live in now.
Christopher Tolkien did in fact die last year.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Mhm.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Mhm.
That was very sad. But so question, like how were you guys introduced to the world of Tolkien? Like did you guys read the books? Did you watch the movies? I know a lot of people that were introduced to Tolkien through the movies, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
I personally was introduced through the movies. I know that here in the States, I think The Lord of the Rings was part of like literature in some schools. It wasn't over there. So, I mean, I didn't grow up with the story. I came to know it when I was in college. I was hanging out with some friends and they had it for some reason. Don't ask me how.
But like,
Yeah. So I was like, and they told me, have you
Película pirata.
ever watched this movie? It's like, I'm like, no. What is that?
Está chido, mira.
Está chido, mira, nomás tiene unas cuantas letras medio raras, pero luego se compone.
It was from someone sitting at the movie theater.
Yeah, it was
recording.
like in Chinese or something, Mandarin. I don't know, but it looked great. No, it was very good quality, and I was like hooked immediately. So it came out. I saw that like maybe like 4 months before Two Towers came out,
Mhm.
and I was like immediately hooked. Two Towers was I was like there at the theater, ready to watch it, and then I just like got into, like you were saying about the passion on one of the episodes, like the behind the scenes and the production and all of it. Because at that time in college, I was getting like a film class, and I was like really into it. So I was watching all the extras and all the stuff that they did and how they filmed it, like consequently, like one after another. And these guys like had like 2-3 birthdays, the actors and the staff, because they just filmed for 3 years straight. So I got really into it, big time. I got like the maps, and people would like give me gifts about Lord of the Rings. And so it wasn't until I saw all 3 movies that I bought like a book that had like all 3 in one book. Yeah, and it had the hand of Sauron on the cover. And I started reading it. I mean, full disclosure, I never finished it. Don't hit me, Ivan. I went like halfway into it because I wasn't really like a reader. I still don't consider myself to be a heavy reader, even though I read more now than I did back then. But I just got lost in the language, and I'm such a visual person, which is why I prefer the movies. And like when Treebeard is talking about all that stuff and the different poems and all that stuff, it just like lingers on and on and on. And I was not smart enough or like
Didn't have the
educated
patience.
enough or the patience, to really understand the art behind his amazing work. I do now. I appreciate it so much more now. So, and the fact that the movies really stayed true to the book, it was from what I gathered from pieces of the book. I was like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. It's still in my top fives. The Return of the King is top five my favorite movies.
That's a good segue for me. We have talked about how I've gotten late into the Tolkien game because I watched it in college.
But you fixed it.
I'm fixing it. Yeah. I think that for me, it was that when I was growing up and going to school in Mexico, it's Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit is not something that gets picked up in literature classes. Like you
Yeah.
got like your Spanish translations of like Shakespeare and Beowulf and all these other epics.
Mm-hmm.
But I never read for pleasure growing up.
Yeah, me either.
So I think that that's one of the things that I'm trying to change now that I'm just like reading books
Mm-hmm.
for fun, which is refreshing.
And my dad is an avid reader. I don't know
Yeah.
about yours.
No,
Oh yeah, my dad is like an avid reader. He would always like instill in us like, gotta read, you gotta read, you gotta read.
Mm.
But we were just the same, you know. And then in school in Mexico, I mean,
You would
they didn't
read for
foster it.
homework. or
You would do a
whatever.
book report or whatever, but they didn't
Yeah.
foster that like love of language and literature as they do here.
Yeah. And you know, I have to be honest, but I'm actually like kind of a little bit put off by like some of the fanaticism around, like things like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek that people get like really into all
Like
of the things.
cosplay and whatnot.
Well, like I'm not saying that it is wrong, but I think that it can like it's borderline idolatry because they make it their religion. You know, people that have like, well, it can go the same way, and people come to my home and they see all of the religious artwork in my house, and they can be like, "This guy's a fanatic, a religious fanatic." Just like I can go to someone's house and see all the decor is Star Wars or Star Trek, I'm like, "This guy's a fanatic," you know.
Mhm.
So I'll drink my own champagne in this comment, but there is a lot of beauty in epic novels like that, and I think that that is something that we have lost in humanity. Like there are, and maybe I don't know. But you tell me if something that resembles that kind of epic work has been produced lately. You know, save like I don't know the Harry Potters or other book series, but that's more for like children. But like the themes are now seeing it through the eyes of faith, something that is like universal, right? And lifts you up to
Mhm.
want to do great things. I think that's like the key of it gets you going.
Yeah.
Nice. I was introduced to Tolkien. I read The Hobbit when I was in middle school, and man, I was just hooked ever since. I moved on to The Lord of the Rings after that, and I started reading them in high school, and it was around the time where the first Fellowship movie came out, and I read the Fellowship, and then I watched it, and I was like, man, this is so cool. And I've had conversations with friends about the book and then the movie, and it's I feel like the movies are definitely like on top list of my favorites because they're so accurate to the book. Not entirely. I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's very hard to take the book and make it
It's-
exactly
It would be 3 months long.
Oh my gosh, it would be so long. I
Larga
mean,
como la cuaresma.
for example, in the first Fellowship,
There's no Tom Bombadil.
there is no Tom Bombadil. They completely cut out that character. But you know what? It's fine. I don't think for the rest of the books, Tom Bombadil doesn't add anything to
The story.
Yeah, to the story. So I think it was fine for that. And some people do make that argument, like, what the heck? What about Tom Bombadil? But no, there's like in the movie, it seems that when Bilbo leaves and then Gandalf goes and finds out like if that's the real ring, and then he comes back, it seems like it just happened really quickly. Well, in the book, it's like 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Dude, Frodo and the rest of the Fellowship, the hobbits, they were like in their 50s when they left.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
When they left the Shire to go on that adventure. I mean, obviously they don't age as
Right.
like humans do, but they were old. So that's just an example. Like, you can't really take the book and make the movie exactly like the book. It's so hard to do that. But dude, just like everything that Tolkien wrote, I just started reading it, and man, I just started getting so into it. And the more I would read it, I would just kind of like piece, because then I found out that Tolkien was Catholic. I was like, dang. And then I started really getting into my faith, and I was like, man, I want to find all these
connections.
Wait, what happened first? You find out that he was Catholic, or your reversion?
My reversion happened first,
and then you found out.
And then I found out that he was.
But
Catholic.
you liked Tolkien before.
I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
So you were like, one of us.
I know. I was like, yes,
I can claim
thank
this.
you, Lord. But yeah, man, I just like everything that he wrote. To me, it was just like the coolest thing. And then now every year I actually got it from AJ, who one of the hosts for Inkledo.
Oh, yeah.
He told me that he tries to read Lord of the Rings at least once a year, and then I started doing that because of him. But then it just became so much harder when I became a parent.
Mm-hmm.
You just have
time is just.
And I like to read. Like, all my siblings, we all read a lot. My parents, not as much. I don't think I really remember like, watching my dad read a book, or my mom. But all my siblings and myself, we all read so much. But it's kind of hard now because it's either chase Lily or read about Sam and Frodo.
Or like sleep or read.
Exactly. And I like sleep.
Wow.
But I also like to read.
Or you fall asleep reading, which happens.
So I asked Carolina to see all 3 movies when we were dating, like the extended
She
edition.
didn't watch them? She hadn't watched them?
She hadn't watched them before.
It's like you knew she was the one.
Exactly. That's when I knew that she was the one for me. She sat through the whole thing and she liked them and enjoyed them. I'm like, all right, let's get married.
It's like in How I Met Your Mother that Ted is trying to find out if Robin likes Star Wars. But with Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, when I was looking for a wedding band, I wanted to do the One Ring.
Mine looks a little bit like that.
Like an exact replica, but Nayeli said no.
I wanted
sad.
that one as well, but because my hands get fatter depending on if it's cold, or I wanted to adjust to my fatness of my fingers.
But the One Ring adjusts, bro.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted the One Ring.
Got it. Okay, got it.
And to show off the little writing when at parties. It's like, check this out, and just throw it in the fire.
Mine has a little writing, but it's something that Deanna put in it.
Yes, but does it come alive with fire though?
Exactly.
That's a good
I don't
point.
think it does.
Yeah, that's how I know that I'm getting fat. Is if my wedding ring leaves a mark when I take it.
Also, but when you put it on, you disappear. So it's like, Nayeli's getting home. It's like, oh crap, I didn't wash the dishes. Put the ring on.
But yeah, but then you start
you can't see me.
The raiders start like haunting you at that point.
Oh, the ring raids.
The raiders.
The raiders.
Like,
the raiders,
because they're so terrible.
Raids, yeah.
Going against the Rams.
So
there's a lot of Catholicism in the world of Tolkien, and you were like, yes, I can claim this. Thank you, Lord. So you started reading about it. What did you find?
about Catholicism, dude, there's just so many things about, like, Tolkien was a pretty awesome Catholic. He went to, I don't know if he went to daily mass. I think I read somewhere that he did go to daily mass. But just, if I don't want to get too much into the books, I want to like save that for like another episode. But even just with the Silmarillion, it's pretty much like the genesis of the creation of the whole Middle Earth. And like when you start reading the first pages of the Silmarillion, you start thinking, where have I read this before?
Does it get created in 7 days?
I think it is 7 days actually, but it's
such a
like,
copycat.
I know.
Just got the Bible and did another version of the Bible.
But it's like he kind of explains it as the whole creation of Varda came. It was made with song. With you have Eru, who's like the one who's God, and then you have the Valar who joined in with their own music, with their own voices, and then you have Melkor, who's the one that I want to do things my own.
Kind of like Satan.
So it's like you have those themes of Christianity. What else? Like, what else for you like sticks out when it comes to Catholicism?
Well, the stuff that we brought up, kind of like when they defeat Sauron, it's on March 25th. So he put that in there. Mary is like resembled a lot with many different characters within the books and the story, like Arwen, Aragorn, kind of like priest, prophet, and king. So there's like, and then for me, it's just coming back to the overall approach to the battle of good and evil. Light versus dark, virtue versus temptation and weakness. So even though there's like some very immediate relations that like the March 25th, like I think Galadriel, the lady of the forest or whatever she's called, gives Frodo a light, to illumine the darkness, and that light has some really big significance to like Candlemas and different things like that put it into perspective when you're reading them back to back, or when you're watching the movies with that kind of like mentality, you're pretty sure to pick up on more stuff. Kind of like when you watched it, that you said, was like, oh, look at that. Oh, I picked up on that. And then what else? Maybe like the feasting, the fact that it's just like for hobbits, it's such a feast, such a way of gathering, among family. I don't know. It's like his stories. It's about heroism too. In today's world, that's really missing. And the heroic element, I think, really grabbed my attention. To get like the most unlikely character, and kind of like David versus Goliath. Nobody ever expected Frodo to actually go and destroy the One Ring, because he was like smaller than a child in height, and he had no special talents. He's like, hobbits are just like, they just want to like grow their food, drink their ales, and be merry and have fun and walk around and smoke tobacco and be in their little corner of the world with no real adventure to behold, because they're good. That's their life. That's their corner of their world. But the fact that it's like the most unlikely and the smallest of the characters of Middle Earth that destroys kind of like Sauron. I don't know. Then the eagles is another one. The eagles that come in and rescue them at the end. I think Revelation has a passage about eagles coming down, and so it's like chock loaded of different Catholicism references.
There's so many people that make the argument of, well, if the eagles could have why didn't the eagles just take the ring and drop it into Mordor?
So it'd be a short story.
I know, yeah. That'd be
and then the eagles took the ring, put him in the... Okay. The end.
The end.
Roll credits.
Exactly.
Directed by Peter Jackson.
Exactly.
I think that I've been talking to Otto about Lord of the Rings, and he had a good point. A shout out to Otto. I think I mention him every other episode.
Where does he live?
Monterrey.
Monterrey.
And he was saying that Tolkien never said that his writings were Catholic, but he said that his writings were universal. I'm like, well, that's a sly way of saying that it is Catholic. If you say that it's universal themes, because just what you just said about Frodo is like it takes courage, and courage doesn't mean like recklessness. He was afraid of what he was to do, his mission to destroy the ring, but even though he was afraid, he kept going and finished his mission, and then he gets his reward for running the race. So I think that, to me, that is like a good simile of like the Catholic life, like the struggle of aiming towards heaven, pretty much.
And the ring it's a good metaphor for power in today's world. I saw somewhere like a comparison between the One Ring and cell phones. That when you lose your cell phone, you're like, where is it? You start like panting. Is like exactly. And you check it like constantly to make sure it's there, and you don't want anything to scratch it or. So I thought it was like a good comparison. But in terms of like the One Ring having ultimate power, but it corrupts people. That's what power does. Success, money, the vices. They just corrupt
but
what's
virtue,
good, true, and beautiful.
Power with virtue does not corrupt.
And that's what Frodo had.
Yeah.
Well, to an extent, because towards the end he does get
tempted,
a lot more tempted. But like one of the favorite scenes that I remember vividly from the movies is when Frodo offers the ring to Gandalf. And Gandalf is like, "Don't tempt me, Frodo." Because it's like, you have no idea.
That was good.
That's a good Gandalf.
You have no idea what would happen if I take that thing. With my skill set and my powers and my abilities, I could pretty much like destroy everything right here, right now. And for Gandalf to have that like clarity of mind, right? That Boromir didn't have. Boromir was like, I just need that ring. And Gandalf was like, I know where I stand.
There was another powerful being that rejected the ring. Who was it?
Galadriel.
Yeah.
Did she say why?
She does. In the book, it goes into detail, but in the movie, they make it look kind of freaky, and it's not like that in the book.
Like when she lights up, right, and gets like weird.
Yeah, but even when she was offered the ring, she says something as, I will use this ring and I will become beautiful, and everybody will see. I don't know the exact thing that she says, but something along the lines of, she will use it for good. But even for her, like, it's too powerful. Like, she didn't take it because exactly like Gandalf, like, don't offer me this ring because, yeah, I may think that I can handle it or I can use it for good, but
the ring has other plans, essentially. Coming back to Tolkien, I think it's just amazing that he wrote all of this, I don't know, even 60, 70 years ago, and it's still relevant. They're still making movies out of it. It's just timeless, and it came out of his head. And I just, and I'm reassured by that story being timeless 50 years from now, because those themes are always going to be present. The basic premise is like good versus evil. And I think it's just so nice to know that it's present and it's like always going to be here. And it's an amazing story. And the book that I finished reading, The Secret Fire, just goes into saying how the story comes into us. It's kind of like how Sam got into what he got into, right? By eavesdropping. He got into the story because of his ears. I just love that how he phrased it. The author saying, the story put Sam in because he was eavesdropping through the garden, and then Gandalf sent him off to Mordor to protect Frodo. And that's how we just get the story, and it just engulfs you and really draws you in, and it doesn't let go. Because movies are like 20 years old now, and 20-year-old movies, and they're still amazing.
Yeah. And we can see how Tolkien just really showed his faith in his writing. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall and just be in his home and just see how he interacts with his wife and his kids, and sharing the faith with them. That would have been super awesome to see. But I don't know, it just brings me so much comfort that Tolkien was a man of faith, and he modeled his faith his whole entire life. Tolkien was also very devout to the Eucharist.
Mm-hmm.
There's this quote that I found that I think it's so cool. And I read it in the letters, and then I couldn't think of it. And yesterday I had to Google it, and I was like, okay, there it is. But he says, out of darkness of my life, so much frustrated, I put before you the one great thing to love on earth, and that is the Blessed Sacrament. There you will find romance, glory, honor, fidelity, and the true way of all your loves upon earth. I'm like, dang.
Yeah. Amen to that.
It's like a mic drop.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so beautiful, man. So, dude, there's so much goodness that can be read and can be seen in everything that Tolkien has created. And I definitely don't want this to be the last Tolkien episode. It doesn't have to necessarily be about Tolkien, but maybe.
There's so much.
Most likely to still.
There's so much to talk about.
Mm-hmm. There's so much.
But for now, we would like to thank you for listening to this episode of Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the podcast, sharing it on social media, leaving a rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and recommending it to your friends and family. And if you didn't like it, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes. You can follow us on Instagram at Barbatus Catholic Podcast. Send us an email at hello@barbatuscatholicpodcast.com. On the web, we are at www.barbatuscatholicpodcast.com, where you will find the show notes for this episode and more. And go read the awesome works of J.R.R. Tolkien. And bless us, Lance Casey.
Pray
for us.
Until the next time.